Second.
On the ball.
Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby enter into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Section 2.2-3711. Discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointments, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, disciplinary, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. 1. Economic Development Authority. 2. Economic Development Commission. 3. Parks and Rec Commission. Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Caskey?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bowles?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair King?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Second.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provision of Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board that such closed meetings was conducted in conformity with Virginia laws. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meetings requirement by Virginia laws were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveyed to closed meetings were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board. Madam Secretary, you call roll, please.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bowles?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Caskey?
Aye.
Chair King?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you.
At this point, if we could rise for a moment of silence, and then I will lead the group in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair and board members, our first item of business this evening is a presentation, and Chris Price from VDOT is here this evening. David Clark could not be with us, so Chris, look forward to hearing an update on road issues and projects.
Thank you guys for having me. What I'll do is I'll split it up into kind of a maintenance construction type update. What is maintenance? I'll split it up into a maintenance construction update. What I'll start out with our construction projects and where they stand, give you an update on those, and move on to the maintenance items. And then if you guys have any questions or any concerns, I can pass that along. So on the construction side, I do want to mention that the Route 639 project, Mount Pleasant Road, has been advertised. We're expecting bids later this month. Construction could start 2 months beyond that. So construction, I look to start around February and March, start cutting trees and doing some work there. We do have it set up for a 3-month road closure for the contractor if they desire that. So we'll have detours in place, and I think a completion date of around August of next year. So that one we'll know who the contractor is in a couple of weeks there. Route 643 Yellow Sulphur, where we have the right-of-way sheets completed. We've had a survey out there, so we're going to move towards obtaining right-of-way on the project, get signatures there. I don't think we're really going to have a lot of problems. Everybody seems on board with the project, so I look for that to move fairly quickly. And I also wanted to mention Route 606 Sydney Church Road has been completed. I will say that 2 days before right at the completion date, we had a heavy rain and had some issues. The project's at a very vulnerable state right when it's finished. The grass hadn't come up. Everything's new. So we had some issues there. We had a contractor back out there fixing some problems, and then we'll come in once we get everything stabilized and get everything kind of working, and then we're going to make some more improvements to some of the drainage items. So I want to pass that along. Our paving contracts are all complete. We've done our paving, surface treatment, and slurry seal contracts are done. So all of that is, I think there's still some interstate work that has to be done, but as far as the primaries and secondaries, those have been completed. All right, as far as the maintenance items, I have quite a big list of what our guys have been doing last month. I won't go through every item. I will highlight a few things. I'm not sure if David had mentioned this, but we did some paving on Rock Road, and we did some pipe work out there as well. Made some improvements to it. It needed some work. Pipe replacement on Fallen Branch, Broad Shoals. We did a little project at Mount Tabor Road. There were some drainage issues at an intersection, so we made some improvements there. Put in several new culverts, did some ditching, changed some slopes there to try to get the water going where we need it to. The mowing obviously been completed. We're doing some ditching. The asphalt patching, we've done a little bit of that, did a little bit on Janelle. That's obviously wrapping up this time of year. I think the asphalt plants will probably close 1st of December, shortly after. So that type of activities is wrapping up. We've also done some shoulder repairs. One thing that I want to highlight, I don't know if anybody's been towards Brush Mountain on 460, but we actually put crews together from Giles County and did a lot in Giles County, and they come across the mountain and did all the way to North Main, fixing all these shoulders. And we especially at Pandapis Pond coming off the hill, I guess eastbound, they were in need for some work. So we did a lot of that. It took a couple 3 weeks to do that. So we've been doing some of that shoulder repair, paving. As we get into this time of year, David did want me to mention, I think there have been some concerns about brush cutting. Some of you guys had some concerns about that. We're kind of moving into that part of our maintenance activities, so you'll see some brush cutting. It gets a little colder, that our crews are going to do more of that. So kind of moving in that phase, and obviously pushing snow. I think we missed this little blast of snow a few days ago, but it was close. Floyd County still, David was over there today, and they still have snow on the ground. So so it's getting to be that time of year. So let's see if there's some things. And we did do some brush cutting on Old Creek Road, Crestwood. Did some brush cleanup, Seneca Hollow, Dark Run. Quite a big list, and I'll be happy to share this if you guys want to see route specifics or have any questions. I have several routes here that we did some work on. So that's about all I have for the updates. If you guys want to, if you have any questions or concerns, I can listen to them.
Have any questions?
I don't have anything, but thank you for everything you do. You've done for me.
I have a couple of questions. So a lot of the work that you did on Mount Tabor and Catawba, let alone Brush Mountain, were probably primarily the result of Mountain Valley Pipeline and their trucks, like on Brush Mountain, parking right before Pandapis Pond. A number of constituents would keep telling me that that's what they were doing, as well as on Mount Tabor and Catawba. The paving that you have done, the constituents that have called me say that you've done a fantastic job. So my question is who pays for that? Who pays for those repairs?
For the pipeline, the pipeline pays for the repairs. Mm-hmm. They do pay for it.
So would they have paid for the Brush Mountain?
No. But I'm not the expert on this, but I could get that information for you. I know they pay for paving. I think they paid for some pipe replacements, things like that. But no, they didn't pay for
all your sloping and different culverts and stuff like that. They don't pay for that on Mount Tabor or Catawba?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to check. I'm not real sure, but I can get that information too.
I'd like to make sure that they do pay their fair share, because they certainly were the largest, wear and tear providers for the last couple of years.
Right.
And I'd hate for our county to shoulder, or VDOT to shoulder any burden that is undue. When Mr. Clark was here the last time, I asked him about Bluster's Gate, the cheese factory corner, There's several homes at that end of Bluster's Gate, and one of the homeowners were wondering if that area could be clustered as a neighborhood isn't really the right word, but something so that a slower speed limit could be done there. They've already done a speed study, and the speed study said they don't have to lower the speed limit. But, there are kids out there waiting, for school buses, and it's just, especially certain times of the year, it can be really very dangerous, quite frankly. So I was wondering if someone could get back to me about if they did any research about that neighborhood kind of concept, so that maybe from 45 to 35 or 45 to 40 even, any little bit will help.
Okay.
And then the last thing, last time Mr. Clark was here, he did say that Galleon Ridge Road was eligible to go on to our 6-year road. Galleon Ridge,
Yes.
where
The speeds, they did do, he did some traffic counts, and he said that it does qualify. I think that was one
and
of
so is that just now it's the Board of Supervisors to see if we want to put it onto our list? Okay.
And I think he had mentioned that, and he said he was going to talk to you guys about Poplar Hollow, I believe, as well. But he did do traffic counts. I think it was over 100 on the weekends for Galleon Ridge. I think he emailed that to you, and then over 50 during the
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
And we added Poplar Hollow and Union Valley drainage on the 6-year plan for us.
Okay. So if we, if you want to add that would be discretion of the board.
And then lastly, Taylor Hollow Road, part of the road is falling into the creek, and Mr. Clark recognizes that, but was wondering what the plan was for that.
Okay, is that on the section that you...
It's after the turn, after the
turn.
bridge. It's the side of the road where Supervisor Fidzikowski owns that side of the road, and I own the other side of the road.
Okay.
I'll sell you myself.
That's all I have. Thank you so much for all you do.
And I'll try to get David to get back with you on this.
Thank you.
I'm fine.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
On the bridge that's being done on Mount Pleasant, is there going to be enough time for them to pave the approaches on that before the plant shut down for season?
Yes.
I know they poured the deck.
Yes.
But they haven't poured
I
the...
think the bridge is weeks away from opening, is
Okay.
my understanding. I think next week, this week has, the temperatures haven't, it has to be 40 degrees and rising. I think next week they have some temperatures, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see it next week. Because, to be quite honest, we moved forward with the Mount Pleasant Road project with the assumption of the bridge obviously being...
Yeah, you're going to need that bridge open if you're going to do the other end.
So we're pushing on our end for them to wrap it on up.
All right,
So
thank you.
I think from my understanding, that's the plan.
And when they come up to pave the approaches, they could maybe throw a little in the potholes.
That's pretty good.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll still a little bit.
I think that's all, but we do
Okay.
appreciate, and Rock Road looks really good.
Good.
Really smooth.
Yeah, we were happy to get that one done. We paved a couple of different roads, and that was one we've had on our list for a little while, so, yeah, good.
We appreciate everything y'all do.
All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Board members, next item on our agenda this evening is a presentation from Housing Virginia. I think Emily's going to introduce the group.
Just gonna get them set up here. They have a Good evening. Thank you. Great. Thank you, members of the board, for having us. My name is Jennifer Wilsey. I'm a senior planner with the New River Valley Regional Commission, and we are here tonight to give you an update on the Regional Plus Local Housing Study. And we were intentional about that name because while we are looking at the region as a whole, we have also been hard at work looking at data specific to each of our localities as well to come up with some specific strategies and recommendations for you all. And so tonight we are going to give you a bit of an overview of some preliminary findings and some draft recommendation strategies. We are about at the end of our 18-month study and we'll be wrapping up. And we're really trying to draft this whole process for action, for implementation, because we appreciate, and I hope you do as well, an actionable study and not something that will just sit and go unused. So throughout this process, we've had two groups that have really been helping us. A smaller leadership group that meets monthly that is made up of representation from all of our localities, some nonprofits, some lenders, some bankers, some home builders, real estate agents, that kind of thing. And then we have a larger advisory group that meets quarterly to hear progress and updates and ask questions and take those things back to champion them in their own sectors. And then with me tonight, I will introduce our technical team. So helping the commission with this study, we have Mel Jones with the Virginia Tech Center for Housing Research, and Jonathan Knopp and Bob Adams with Housing Virginia out of Richmond, and they are both going to share some of those findings and strategies that I mentioned. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mel, and thank you so much for your time.
Hi, y'all.
Good evening.
Some of you know me from being a Blacksburg Planning Commissioner, so that's maybe why I look familiar. Anyway, so I'm also Mel Jones, the Associate Director of the Virginia Center for Housing Research at Virginia Tech. We are a state research center as well as a university research center, so we have a mission to serve communities across the Commonwealth and help them address their housing challenges. Then we also have a mission as a university center to create cutting-edge research that really serves the nation and beyond. So we have fun thinking about housing every day. Today I'm here just to give you a tiny snippet of the data that we have looked at for this study, and you know, when the study gets released in draft form or final form to you guys, you will enjoy reading all of the data and immersing yourself in my world. But anyway, today just a tiny snippet. And we'll start with some of our major takeaways. This information is coming both from the data, but also from talking to stakeholders across the New River Valley. We had an opportunity to host so far almost 10, maybe more focus groups with regional experts. And so you'll see some of that reflected in what I'm going to say today. The New River Valley needs new home ownership units. Particularly, the units being built don't address the needs of low and moderate income households in our community, and I'll show you some graphs later that demonstrate that. Submarkets near employment centers, which you guys count as, are too tight, and it makes it difficult to buy a home in particularly Blacksburg, Christiansburg, but then Montgomery County is right behind them, and the New River Valley as a whole is actually tighter than much of Northern Virginia, which again, I'll go into a little more detail later. units being developed across the region. Units are being developed across the region, and Christiansburg, Blacksburg, Montgomery County are really leading the way in that. But still, we heard from employers when we talked to them in focus groups that it is having an impact on their ability to recruit talent. That they've offered, particularly in the tech industry, jobs that have been turned down because they can't find desirable housing here within a reasonable amount of time. And this is one of my biggest points because recently, a couple of years ago, we were lucky to do a study for the entire state to think about housing needs in the entire state. And the 81 corridor really offers unique opportunities for home ownership that aren't available in the rest of the state. And so it's an opportunity to attract lots of business and employees to our communities, but because our market is so tight, it's hard for us to take advantage of that. Here is just a tiny bit of data, median sale price. The New River Valley Realtors Association gave us 20 years worth of data, which we were really excited to receive and think about. Here, Montgomery County is in gray, so the top two lines, Blacksburg in yellow, Montgomery County in gray. So you see median price inching towards $275 in Montgomery County, and then in the legend down there beside Montgomery County, you see a plus 7%. So if you look year over year, 2007 to 2018, so trying to not account for the recession there, looking at pre-recession to now, 7% increase in median price. This looks a little crazy, but it's just because of the small amount of data in this graph. Median price of homes built and sold recently, 2014 to 2019. One of the most significant things that I gained from this graph is that all of those lines, with the exception of Blacksburg, are starting to come together. Our region is becoming more cohesive, and it's beginning to cost the same to buy anywhere in our region. Down in the bottom in the legend again, you see N equal 90 for Montgomery County. That means 90 units over this time built and sold. Market vacancy in NRV, so we're not counting vacant, abandoned units, long-term vacancies here, just vacancies that are for sale or for rent. New River Valley-wide is 3%. We think about a healthy vacancy rate being between 2 and 7%. In Montgomery County, when we break this down to jurisdiction level data, the quality of the data gets less or lower, and so we have to give a range instead of a pinpoint number. So in Montgomery County, it's somewhere between 2 and 4%. New River Valley-wide median days on the market was 19 in 2018. And to give you some context, in March, so one of the most active times in the market in Northern Virginia and in Fairfax County and Prince William, 24 days on the market and 26 respectively. So this is indicative of us being a little bit tighter than some of the most active parts of the Northern Virginia market. Montgomery County, 22 days on the market in median in 2018. And you can kind of see a story in these numbers that you might expect, with Blacksburg being the lowest days on the market, 7. Christiansburg falling behind them, and then Montgomery County. This is kind of the story that we see repeated throughout the data. Slide here. We had some interesting trouble with slides this morning, but I'm missing a slide on rental units. So I wanted to express that the New River Valley also needs rental units. Part of that need is driven by this fact that the homeownership market is so tight. So if you move to the New River Valley to take a new job, the likelihood of you finding a home to buy in advance of your move is low. So you need a place to live in the meantime while you either wait to find that house you want to buy or build a house. So as we talk to folks all over the New River Valley, we heard over and over again, we need more temporary rental housing for professionals that's not part of that student rental cycle. Because if you move here in, let's say, October, the likelihood, again, of you finding even a rental is fairly low. So there's that market that we really need to serve. And then there's also the low-income market. Those folks with extremely low incomes, particularly the ones in service industry, so think retail, restaurant, they're having a hard time finding anywhere in the New River Valley to live. And so usually their choices become overcrowded housing, so doubling, tripling up, or substandard housing. And there are other populations that struggle with access to housing, but in terms of economic development particularly, that group is really struggling. So that leads me right into housing affordability. About 5,900 owner households region-wide need more affordable housing. The mortgage finance process kind of keeps you from being in a situation where you can't afford your home at the onset. So many owners, they've had an economic crisis, or over time their taxes and utilities in the face of a fixed income have become a burden to them. Then we also took a cut at this data that excluded undergraduate households. It's important for us to do that in this community because there are a lot of undergraduate households and they typically disproportionately represent their income as very low. So since we don't have good data on the undergrads, we just took them out and had a look at non-undergraduate headed households. And 14,500 non-undergrad households need more affordable housing. We need about 5,500 units to catch up on extremely low-income households. So again, those making less than 30% of AMI, which in much of our community is about at the poverty line. Again, this is impacting those retail and service workers. It's not always clear that they're earning at the poverty line, but particularly if they have families and both earners are entry level, haven't been in their careers for a really long time, this can be a real problem for them. Let's see. I'm going to go quickly over some of the focus group highlights, things that we heard. We heard employers say we would really like to find an alternative to Blacksburg. Blacksburg's high-priced. We don't see a lot of housing being built there. So we want to see community development in walkable places that are not Blacksburg. Then we heard as opportunities, higher density in places with broadband, water, sewer, transit opportunities or options, and employer-focused housing. And then everybody was happy about the awareness and momentum to address housing issues, which is part of the impetus for this study. Challenges, the size of our regional construction industry, the growth after the sort of recessionary impacts has not been huge. That's a nationwide story, actually. But the more rural you get, the harder this story is. Land costs and infrastructure access are certainly a challenge. Capacity or political will to change zoning, we heard a lot. And capacity, I think, should be sort of underscored there. Student university market impact was also a big point, but one thing that I haven't mentioned is the competition for the middle-priced unit. So those units that are attractive to first-time home buyers are also very attractive to investors or parents looking to buy for students, and that makes the competition even more intense, and really translates into market access for first-time home buyers. It's not looking great for us as a region. So I will turn it over to Housing Virginia.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Knopf, and I am with Housing Virginia. Housing Virginia is a statewide nonprofit research policy generating coalition of a lot of people. Our board was formed about 15 years ago by the State Housing Finance Agency, the HDA, the home builders, the realtors, really to advance a positive image of housing and to really find common solutions that can be advanced at the state level and local level to create greater housing opportunities and housing choices throughout the Commonwealth. So we work very closely with Mel. She helps provide a lot of the data for the work that we do. And so she provides the numbers and we help provide these solutions. So we've been really excited about this work here in New River Valley. Bob and I have made several trips out here and we've really enjoyed our time meeting with staff and elected officials, no matter how many degrees or how many digits are in the temperature at any given moment. But we really enjoyed our time out here and to really appreciate the momentum behind solving some of the interesting housing challenges you all have in Montgomery County and in the region. So I think now is really the time to make some really important and helpful, beneficial strides in this, which Montgomery County is already doing, which we'll talk about here. So our process, any good recommendations and policy solutions obviously have to come from data and from what knowledgeable people are saying on the ground. Elected officials, your staff, people in the focus groups that Mel has been working with that she gave some highlights from. And then we kind of digest those findings and come up with some implications. Basically, what does this mean for policymakers and for actual policy implementation? And then we craft solutions and strategies that will be helpful for local staff across the region and regional staff, the Regional Commission, to begin implementing in 2020 and beyond. And as Jennifer said, we really want to have the end result of this process be very tangible, actionable solutions that have a broad base of support that will result in beneficial impact for expanding housing opportunity across the continuum for everybody in the county and across the region. So the first chunk of ideas that we want to focus on are creative ways to increase density. Localities across the state, large cities, smaller towns, suburban counties, all need to do this, and Montgomery County is already doing that through your urban village concept, and we think that is a really great idea and great way to encourage smart density that fits within the neighborhood character that's desired within the county. And so we think there's ways to make sure that the zoning and land use within these villages can offer affordability by design, so we can encourage smaller homes, smaller lots that the market can provide at price points that help get a little lower on those line graphs that Mel was showing earlier, closer down to the upper 100s and maybe 200 or so to be more accessible for first-time home buyers. And we can do that with really innovative, interesting products as well, beyond just the traditional stick-built homes. There's lots of innovations that are coming out of Virginia Tech in the manufactured and modular realm, and we can also create what's known as missing middle density, so duplexes, triplexes, not large multifamily rental products, but smaller neighborhood scale options that help create diverse housing options within a single community. So this is an example. Many of you have probably seen an illustration like this, but most of the housing development across Virginia and across the nation over the past 50, 60 years has looked like a barbell. We have lots of single-family homes that are detached and lots of large multifamily. But what the market is really seeking, both people in my generation, millennials, and boomers who are looking to downsize and maybe find a home without high cost, are looking for density kind of in this range. And we think that urban villages in Montgomery County can be a great option for deploying densities and housing choices like this. Other innovations across the state include, for creative density, include manufactured homes in cities. So Danville is piloting a manufactured home, tiny subdivision, about 8 or 9 lots. The manufactured homes that are going in come in 2 pieces and fit together to look like, charming New Orleans style shotgun homes. And so these will be in a historic mill neighborhood in Danville, and you wouldn't really know these as manufactured homes if you were to walk by them. Their facades are really impressive. The porches and the doors are oriented towards the street to really help create a neighborhood feel. And these homes are being delivered at about $120,000 or $130,000. So they are really affordable by design for working class folks and first time home buyers in Danville. In Farmville, we're seeing some interesting density come in the way of tiny home villages. These were done by a local private developer who has rented these out. They're about 700 square foot cottages. They leased up very quickly, and we think that this is kind of an interesting density concept that we would like to explore in Montgomery County. Maybe not exactly like this, but something like this in concept. A little bit of a larger scale, Charlottesville has been experimenting. They took a very large, older, affordable housing, multifamily complex, and are repositioning it to be mixed use and mixed income. So they're incorporating a childhood center into there, adding units, but in a way that's not monolithic. There's different types of housing that meet different income points and different types of families and households. And so there are lots of best practices and good trends that we can look to in the Commonwealth for increasing density in ways that help address the litany of housing needs that Mel talked about. The other big thing that we've heard both in the county and really across the region and across the state is dealing with the age wave and helping seniors age in place or find housing that is right-sized for them. My parents have very different housing preferences than my grandparents, and that's just the nature of generational change. And so we need to make sure that Montgomery County has a wide array of housing programs and services and options for existing seniors and boomers who will become seniors very soon. And so you all have a very successful senior real estate tax relief program. Many localities across the state do. We encourage you to keep it up. I'm sure you plan to. There's also some creative ways that you can accentuate that with creating senior villages through new development, looking at ways to modify your accessory dwelling unit allowances to help seniors specifically. So there's lots of good policies and solutions that we will work with staff directly to propose as part of this report. But we just want to make sure that senior housing needs are elevated. So this is what senior cottages look like, little senior villages. The density helps seniors with completing chores for one another and helps give them socialization, which is just as important as medication and other healthcare needs. Being around other people is a critical part for seniors to feel secure in the homes they're aging in. Finally, this is a relatively new trend in Virginia, but we're seeing some really great partnerships between anchor institutions in metro areas and housing providers, and we think there's an excellent opportunity here in Montgomery County and in the region to explore those partnerships to help expand housing investments. So this can be through the delivery of employee housing for hospital staff or university employees, using existing healthcare systems to proactively create healthy and safe homes, which will save their bottom lines from the ER if they have fewer people coming in because they're falling in their homes because they don't have the right accessibility modifications to live comfortably and safely in their homes. And there's also an opportunity to have housing awareness campaigns, housing education campaigns, to really expand people's ideas about housing, and that it really is part of the social determinant of health. If you have an affordable, safe home in a good community, you will probably live a little bit longer, and you will probably live much healthier than somebody who is paying too much for housing or has very low quality housing. So housing can be a proactive way to increase the health of your citizens and your neighborhoods. So a major recent example, hot off the press in Virginia, is that Centera Health in Hampton Roads has joined in on a $100 million investment to improve housing in Tidewater, Virginia. Bon Secours Hospital in Richmond is making direct investments in housing in Richmond City and the Richmond region, and Carillion has been exploring this topic, so we think there's a really interesting nexus that's a good opportunity for the region to explore. And finally, kind of flowing out of that partnership with anchor institutions is the fact that housing needs sometimes or often require resources in the form of money to actually get done. We can change land use and zoning and reorient services all day long, which is great, but sometimes we just need money to help actualize housing investments and housing improvements and new housing. So you all have a great way of delivering federal housing resources in the region through the New River Valley Home Consortium. We think that is a real model for you to piggyback on and consider a regional housing trust fund to generate or to pool local resources, which can come from localities, anchor institutions, philanthropic foundations, corporations, so that the region, including Montgomery County, has a flexible pot of funding to help address your discrete, specific housing needs in the county. That you all would collaborate with the region to determine, how are we going to generate the funding and how are we going to use it. And so housing trust funds are used throughout the state, mainly in larger cities, but we think that you all already have great regional collaboration with housing funding, and so just expanding the type of funding to do those projects would be a great opportunity. So that is all I have for you, but I'm happy to answer questions, as are the team. Jennifer, do you want to say some final words?
I was just going to wrap up and say thank you for going over those and again for having us. Just going to give context that we are sort of beginning this iterative process with these strategies, and a big thanks to Craig and Emily for sort of being in the trenches with us and giving us feedback on our consortium and leadership team along the way. Where we're headed next is we are working on finalizing the plan and getting these strategies set. The final plan will have a deeper dive on the strategies that are that the county highlights as being its sort of top maybe 3 to 4, and we'll be able to provide a lot more detail, implementation, guidance, and those types of things. And we hope to have a final plan out in January. And with that, we are able to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I'm probably going to ask questions of several of you, but the first one is for Mel. Hi, Mel.
Hi.
On your housing affordability slide, one of the bullets was estimated 5,500 units required to catch up on extremely low income units. And I understand the concept, but is that 5,500 affordable housing units are suggested, or is that just 5,500 overall?
So that's just for the extremely low income. So these would be likely deeply subsidized units. And so it's just a part of that 14,500 that really need more affordable housing, but that's the lowest bracket. And so I was trying to kind of highlight for you guys those ones that are going to take tax credit and locality-based efforts,
more initiatives
to get
on
it done. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So also on this slide, the 5,900 owner households, and then the next bullet is 14,500 non-undergrad households. Is that a combination of 5,900 and some other number? Is that
right,
rentals
so the
and owners?
14,500 is the total non-undergraduate, and the owners and the extremely low income folks are subsets of that.
Okay.
14. Yeah.
And then on the focus groups highlight slide, and the challenges
Sorry, I
next.
rushed right through.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I would hope if we're looking at opportunities for community development in walkable places and employment centers outside of Blacksburg, and higher density in places with broadband, which is key, as I'm sure you're also finding in your study, and then public utilities and transit options. I would personally like to know where, if that could come as a result of the study, where should we be looking at in Montgomery County? Do we know what areas maybe we could locate that housing in, or what would be even suggested? That would be helpful
Yeah,
for
and I
us
think
to know.
that what I'm hearing kind of from you, and we've already certainly heard from Emily, is that we need, well, and we're still trying, it's not, something that's new to us, we've been trying this whole time, but we're trying to work with staff to put these recommendations into a specific world that you guys are already addressing. So like Jonathan said, how can some of this stuff manifest in your existing village plans, for instance, which are heavily built on infrastructure access and so on. Looking at Emily, make sure I'm not saying something wrong. But yeah, we want to do that, and we want to make it more specific, but that is where we really need a lot of feedback from you guys, because we would rather choose a few things and go kind of deep in a way that is useful to you and your staff than to go broadly. So, if you have a specific village plan where you would like us to think about some of these affordable housing or senior housing or other housing challenges, then we want to do that, and we really need direction from you guys.
Well, and the trifecta of public water and sewer, broadband, and transit, I'm sure you guys are finding is very difficult to accomplish when you're looking at housing affordability outside of your population centers, like the smaller, the two towns and the small amounts of land that they are compared to the county as a whole.
Absolutely, and those, if we could look at those little subsets in the MLS, I'm sure that we would see that that's where the most pressure is.
And then on your challenges slide, I just wanted to make a comment, not so much a question. I'm sure you're completely well aware of this because the depth of your research is so wide. But something that I have seen quite a bit in the housing in Blacksburg is you've got developers coming in, buying your mid-price rental units, taking them off market, upgrading them considerably, and then upgrading the rents and taking them into a much less affordable plane. And that's something that has long troubled me, even more so now as student rentals, that market is getting so tight, it's creating tightness all around. So I just wanted to make the point that that is something that I view, particularly in Blacksburg, particularly in my district, as a huge challenge for housing access.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that, in our focus on density, preservation has not been a major topic. So it's well taken that as we're talking about these density issues, especially where redevelopment is going to be key to increasing density, we need to think about preservation, so thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the town of Blacksburg has placed a huge emphasis on redeveloping some of the older communities in a way that is denser, more located to those transportation cores, but I think that has been taken to a very unaffordable place in a lot of incidences. So they're making housing denser, but they're also making it considerably more expensive, which I understand is very profitable, but it puts things very much out of balance. I'm sure you know that.
Absolutely.
And then the next questions that I had were for the presenter after you, and I'm so sorry I do not remember your name. Jonathan.
Yes, that's okay. A couple more syllables in my name than Mel.
One is a very low-ball question. What is a bungalow court? How would that be defined? That's actually a term I've never heard before.
So planners like to come up with lots of fun names for different types of density. Bungalow court, it's probably something that is more common on the West Coast. So, small single-story homes that are designed in kind of the bungalow style that are, oriented in a small cluster. The access for those homes could be a public right-of-way, but it's, in this particular illustration, it's kind of, you have private paths in between, that's shared space. So it's not, a bungalow court is not something that we would normally see around Virginia. It's probably something more common on the West Coast. It's just an example of the range of densities that fall between traditional single-family homes and your larger multifamily rental.
Would the next two slides be somewhat similar to what a bungalow court could be?
Right, yeah. I mean, so the manufactured home pilot here, we can certainly provide the draft site plan that Danville has. All of these lots would be, deeded parcels. So it's not like a mobile home park where they're all on one parcel. The homeowners in these homes would own the land underneath, and each of the lots is oriented to the street. It's just standard infill lots in Danville. So it wouldn't really be a court per se, but they are clustered, I think, across one or two blocks. And so they're just, the same dimension as kind of a larger single wide or smaller double wide trailer that is perpendicular to the street, with the porch and the front door oriented to the sidewalk. So it's really just a smart use of infill in an affordable way. So instead of larger, more expensive homes going up, which probably couldn't be supported in Danville anyway, they're kind of revitalizing a small historic neighborhood by bringing in these very affordable by design units.
Okay, and then...
but yeah, this is more kind of like a bungalow court with a private shared space in between.
Okay, and then one more question about the slide before this one in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's a two-part question. Does the $120,000 to $130,000 include land costs? And also, as part of that question, is a manufactured housing unit, is that a depreciating asset, or is that treated as real estate?
So I looked at Bob, I believe the one...
City donated the land, so there was no land cost in that.
Okay.
Yep, so the city of Danville donated the land, but the homeowner will get the land in that purchase price. And then your second question, manufactured housing will, when it is sited on a permanent foundation like these will, and placed on land that the owner owns, it will appreciate just like a standard stick-built house, especially if it's a high-quality manufactured home, which these will be. The issue depreciation comes into play when those homes are treated as, are titled as personal property and placed inside of manufactured home communities, aka mobile home parks. And in Virginia, when those units are placed inside the parks, they may be taxed as real property, but they are titled as personal property, just like a boat or an ATV. And so they are depreciating assets in that case.
And I asked that question because I'm particularly sensitive to the challenges of mobile home owners where they're renting a lot and they might own their mobile home, but they're faced with that being a depreciating asset, and they're already in a low-income housing product to begin with, so it kind of can negatively impact their family wealth. And then the last thing I wanted to say, and I apologize to my colleagues for taking so much time, on the institutional partnership slide, I just want to make a comment from the county's perspective. I, of course, am very supportive of these types of institutional partnerships, but we also are wary of partnerships in ways that might take properties off of the tax rolls. So I'm thinking specifically, one of the larger issues we've been dealing with is the Virginia Tech Foundation, and how when land goes in, or when it's acquired by the Virginia Tech Foundation, it removes that property from the tax rolls. And real estate tax revenue is one of our, largest contributors to the county's budget, and so we use that to significantly fund our public schools. And so I just more of just a comment that that's something that, of course, I think all of us would be supportive of institutional partnerships as long as it was done in a way that allowed us to continue to collect real estate taxes, because we do need those for public safety and schools and all of the other services we provide.
Right, so I'll just say quickly that the beauty of institutional partnerships, or one of the benefits, is that those institutions, say a hospital system, for example, can be flexible in terms of the support it provides. It can provide just donations of money. It can provide donations of time through a volunteer network. It can provide some flexible debt service or capital to help get particular housing projects done. It can just be a supportive partner when it comes to building broad-based support for housing. So there's all sorts of different ways that those entities can get involved. But more often than not, it's usually not in the form of actual housing development and taking increasing the amount of tax-exempt land. There are some examples of universities and hospitals developing housing themselves. It's fairly rare. And in those cases, it may actually be done by kind of a separate legal entity that may not be tax exempt. But it's not super common, at least not in Virginia. The partnerships usually manifest themselves in ways that aren't additional real estate acquisition by the institutions.
And I really appreciate your perspective on that, and I saw some heads nodding behind you. I really appreciate the understanding. Clearly, I find your research fascinating, so I really appreciate you guys being here tonight and sharing your preliminary data with us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I really like the report, and I do like the cottages and all. Are the ones in Danville already built?
They are not built yet.
No, they're expecting the first homes to be delivered in January.
January, okay, good. I'd like to see that. In my district, I have the Toms Creek Basin area, which has some of these ideas already in it, but again, the prices are expensive. But one of the things that I want to ask you specifically about, we often hear that our teachers and our police officers and our sheriff's deputies can't afford to live near their jobs, can't afford a house, whatever. Were any of these type employments taken into when you were looking at, the units that you needed for folks?
Yeah, so we, in partnership with the regional commission, so they've done a lot of the data analysis right along with us, looked at basically every occupation in the New River Valley and whether or not those occupations could afford to live anywhere in the New River Valley or in particular localities. So in the New River Valley, Pulaski, Giles are the most affordable places. Radford kind of coming up also to live. And so while at the same opposite, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Montgomery County are the least affordable places to live if you are moving here. So we did the analysis as if you were maybe a police officer trying to buy a home. So is home ownership accessible to you? Or if you're a police officer trying to find a place to rent, could you do that? And we found that it was primarily these extremely low income folks, so think about childcare folk,
CNAs.
service worker. Yes. These people are going to have trouble finding anywhere in the region to live. And you'll see this in the report, but it's a fairly detailed analysis regarding occupations and whether or not they can live in each jurisdiction, and then highlighting those who cannot live in the valley where they work. Yeah.
Okay, and then another thing, two other things. I hear a lot about aging in place and having resources to take homes that might be appropriate to do that and sort of redo them in some manner, but there's a cost to that. And these are all things that people have said in my district. That's why I was talking. Another thing is people that have disabilities. I have one constituent that could afford a house, but he purposely lives in the Heathwood area in Fox Ridge Apartments because he has a son that's in a wheelchair, and the only way they can provide service for his son to get to work and everything is through the Blacksburg Transit. Otherwise, they would like to buy a house, but they don't have that access to the transit. So when you're talking about you know, the village plan and getting folks in there and all, and the transportation aspect of it, that's a large cost to localities. Will any information about that be in the study?
So additional transit access is what you're asking if we've figured out the costs related to that. We've looked at the costs that households experience in terms of housing plus transportation, because you know that if you're trying to find a home ownership opportunity, often you will move further and further from an employment or amenity center in order to find that. But that's it's the household experience in terms of paying for transit that we've taken a look at. If sort of transit connections are interesting to you and important, we can certainly think about how we might incorporate that.
Well, I'm thinking about seniors too, like if you're really looking at a community for seniors and it's not going to be within the town limits, then that's a problem in itself. Like, how do you go shopping? What do you do? That kind of thing.
Yes.
And lastly, when the report comes back and you're talking about having a housing trust fund, and you said some of the larger localities already have this, are there examples of what kind of money goes into something like that you'll be sharing with us?
Yeah, and we're listening for feedback from all of the localities, since we like this idea of a regional housing trust fund, but it's certainly possible to have a jurisdiction-based housing trust fund. And again, with what we hear you're interested in, we will provide examples from across the Commonwealth and beyond about how those trust funds get funded. Very often they are funded in multiple ways. And that way you guys can even maybe direct us further. We're interested in these funding methods, and could you give us more information on that? And that, you know, will be a back and forth that happens through staff.
Are there any grants out there for any of this kind of stuff?
Well, there's certainly grants from the Virginia Housing Development Authority to help set up these things. And something that we've been really stressing everywhere that we've gone is that statewide VHDA is sort of underutilized resource, and they have plenty of funds dedicated to helping communities do things like set up housing trust funds or create affordable housing preservation plans, you name it. So, for example, Blacksburg right now is receiving VHDA funds to try to think about this density bonus program. VHDA helped fund this study. And so, yes, certainly there are grant funds to help figure the nuances of a housing trust fund.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is really exciting.
Yeah.
Mel. So you talked about all the different focus groups that you worked with. In any of the focus groups, did anybody say that our real estate taxes were too much?
No. Not that
No
I recall.
one.
And so we didn't talk a lot to the public yet. You know what I mean?
But you've been talking to experts in our
so,
community.
like realtors, lenders, employers. We talked, gosh, I'm blanking. Yep, home builders,
Bankers,
non-profit
lenders.
housing providers, faith-based groups. Thank you, Jennifer.
And not a single peep about our real estate taxes are too high.
No.
But you also brought up the fact that we need to continue the senior real estate tax relief programs that we have. Was that mentioned in any of your focus groups?
So we did talk to the Aging in Place group, but they were more focused on the costs that compete with housing and the costs of maintenance in housing that seniors experience, particularly low-income seniors on fixed incomes. So they didn't mention real estate taxes specifically. However, we know that particularly when you're a homeowner and your main, and you've paid off your mortgage, your main housing costs are maintenance, taxes, insurance, and utilities, right? And so those would be the determinants of your housing costs. So if your housing is too burdensome, those would be the sort of levers you could pull to make it more affordable.
Now, will you ever survey the general public?
We did survey the general public, and that survey is still open. Asking people to provide information about their experiences, either in housing or trying to find housing in the New River Valley. Once we are ready to close that study, we will start doing analysis on it. Yeah.
And in your study, is there an opportunity to bring up any other topic that isn't mentioned or asked for in your study?
What is that?
Meaning, there's often in a survey, the very last question is there anything else that we should know?
Yeah, and we do that with all of our focus groups, of course, yes.
Okay. Also on the same, the housing affordability page, for a healthy community, healthy county, you should not, tell me if you should or should not neglect any of those top 3 bullets. We shouldn't neglect those. If there's an issue, we should address them.
Right, and so I guess the first point is you need housing all along the income ladder, and affordability stretches far beyond this extremely low income group. However, they're very connected. So when you don't have enough housing for one group, they often push demand into housing that would be appropriate for another group. That's just one example of the interconnectivity. We also like to talk about the rule of thumb. For every good, high-paying job you bring to the New River Valley, that household is going to demand the services that require 3 lower-income households to create. And so they do fall hand in hand. And the other piece that I want to mention about owners specifically is when owners are cost burdened, paying more of their income for housing than they can readily afford, their savings are very often depleted, and that means that they don't have the money to invest in their home, and that has implications for our housing stock. So housing is very sticky. It stays with a community, right? Whereas people kind of move in and out. But if your community, if the people moving in and out of that housing don't have the money to keep that stock up, you're stuck with the deteriorating stock. So it's a kind of also an important component of managing a community. How do we make sure that that stock gets updated?
Great. Bear with me, because and as part of your final report, will you, like Supervisor DeMott's asked, perhaps recommend certain places that the extremely low housing should be or not, and things like that?
Yeah, and there are best practices for that. So location affordability means more to lower income households than it does to higher income households. And when I say location affordability, I mean within easy access to amenities and job centers. So we will be certainly indicating what areas and what criteria are important to best serve those extremely low income households.
Perfect. And then on your slide, your challenges slide, your third bullet says political will to change zoning. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and I put capacity / political will here because we hear 2 different lines of thought about zoning. So we hear consistently, we wish our zoning worked better for us, or the zoning is outdated and we might have a kind of Band-Aid to try to fix it. Think PRD in Blacksburg. And we hear a couple ways that gets manifested. Why don't we rewrite the zoning code? Because it's not a high enough priority, because we don't have staff capacity to do it, because we would have to hire an outside consultant to redo it. And again, this is a conversation that's happening all over Virginia, because we're looking for new ways to develop, and we're trying to develop with a different set of priorities, and those priorities weren't in place when many of our zoning codes were written. So everyone is facing this challenge, and I think that if every time you guys wanted to rewrite a piece of your zoning code, you could just snap your fingers, then you probably would, but it's a little more complicated than that.
But I see this as quite the opportunity, especially related to your 81 corridor.
Yes.
If we can get a handle on this and be really wildly successful in this, then it can only just manifest throughout the county and our businesses and things like that, right?
You are so correct. And because, so when we were doing this study for Virginia, we urged Virginia, if you guys will get ahead of this housing problem, then it will be a huge economic development opportunity for Virginia, because the whole nation is experiencing this housing affordability issue. And now, we are growing faster than the rest of the country, Virginia as a state. And in that scenario, we would anticipate that the state could build 700,000 new households or housing units in the next 10 or 15 years, and they would be easily absorbed. Now, where those units will go is up to localities to determine, and you guys know as well as I do the kind of economic development opportunity we have down this way because of Amazon in Northern Virginia and the pipeline that's related to that. Like, we might be the next Silicon Valley if only we can be more affordable than Silicon Valley.
Thank you. Jonathan, I have some questions. So the Charlottesville example, did you, how did that come to place? Like, who owned that whole area? Who bought it?
Bob is the expert on this.
Okay, Bob.
Talk a little bit about that. So the property in Charlottesville is, as Jonathan said, it's an older, affordable housing community that was built in the 1970s. It was owned by a private developer originally. It was sold in the early 90s to two nonprofits, one based in Charlottesville, one in Washington. And it was rehabilitated at that time using the low-income housing tax credit program. Finished its 15 years of compliance, and the local Charlottesville nonprofit purchased the property and now owns it, is the 100% owner. So that group, which is called Piedmont Housing Alliance, they are the owners and the redevelopers of that site. It was a traditional 1970s walk-up apartment community of about 12 buildings, 150 units, and it had some vacant land next to it. So the redevelopment plan, and this is very well located. It's 2 blocks from the downtown mall in Charlottesville, so it's a wonderful site. The plan involved the residents, it involved the community, and the final plan, which is about to get underway, will be to first build on that vacant land. And as Jonathan said, the housing design is going to be much more urban and desirable. It's going to be stacked townhouses. Not a lot of new high-rise multifamily buildings, but they are increasing the density threefold, and they're going to include some ownership units in it, and they are going to retain that 150 units of deeply affordable housing, but then the other 300 units that are going to be built on the site are going to be a range of incomes from workforce up to market rate.
And can you tell us what the City of Charlottesville's hand in all that was?
Well, obviously the property had to be rezoned to allow this increase in density, and so the city was very supportive of that process. There was other money that came into play. There's a prominent band based in Charlottesville, as you may know, Dave Matthews Band, and they put a significant amount of grant money into this property, which is another one of these institutional partnerships that is emerging, where we're seeing unlikely partners coming to the table to
Are you calling
support.
Dave Matthews Band an institution?
They are an institution
I may
now.
agree with you.
Now, yes, they are.
Yep, they are.
20 years ago, not so much. So there, and I believe, I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe the city of Charlottesville made a financial contribution to the project as well.
The city of Charlottesville did make a number of financial investments in the planning along the way. So they were always, they were always a player in this plan making, which, made them more supportive, most likely, when it came to rezoning and so on. But yeah, they have, in addition to VHDA and Dave Matthews and others, the city has contributed to the monetary funds required to plan this process.
And I'm not sure who's, Jonathan spoke to this, but I'm not sure who's going to speak to this. The Housing Trust Fund versus a housing authority. Is there a what's, I don't even,
Sure, there's a big difference. A housing trust fund is really just a pool of capital. Usually grant funding, but it could be debt, could be concessionary debt that makes up a part of a housing trust fund. But a trust fund is capital that is used to reduce the cost of developing housing, thereby making it more affordable, and that's done in a variety of ways. A housing authority is, in Virginia, a housing authority is a political subdivision of the state. It is a organization that operates under state law. Traditionally, housing authorities in Virginia, one of the primary things that they have done is to develop public housing. The public housing program is really ended for all practical purposes 20 years ago. So most housing authorities around the state now do own and manage public housing, but they've not been adding to the public housing supply. Some housing authorities have gotten into the affordable housing development business, operating usually through a nonprofit subsidiary to continue to develop affordable housing using tax credits, using the state housing trust fund, or using home money, a whole variety of sources.
I see.
Housing authorities also frequently administer the Housing Choice Voucher Program, although not necessarily. Localities can, and other organizations can also administer those Housing Choice Vouchers.
And then my last question is, I think that Blacksburg, the town of Blacksburg's looking into having a housing trust fund. Is that correct? But you're talking about doing it more regionally. And the benefits of doing it more regionally are what, again?
Well, I think one benefit would be scale. So one town or a small county is going to have a hard time generating a housing trust fund of a scale that's going to be sufficient to really have an impact. So I think in the New River Valley, it seems to us that a better strategy would be to do a regional trust fund in the same way that you operate the home consortium. Funding could rotate around throughout the region. Jurisdictions could opt in and out. There could be a variety of funding sources that are identified, as we've discussed.
Would Montgomery County, as a sole county with two towns, with the three municipalities, be too small for a housing authority, or housing trust fund, or it's,
No, not at all. There are jurisdictions around the state. Charlottesville, city of Charlottesville is an example. Albemarle County is an example. Both of them have housing trust funds independently. So no, I think it could be done at a scale, certainly with the county and the two towns.
Thank you so very much. Great information.
Supervisor Shepherd.
No questions.
Thank you all very
Wait,
much for
I got a
Just-
follow-up too.
Just to follow up actually with your question, Supervisor Bone, the Housing Trust Fund question specifically to the town of Blacksburg. I serve on the town of Blacksburg's Housing and Community Development Advisory Board. It is something that has been looked at. I mean, I've been part of several discussions on the topic of a housing trust fund for the town of Blacksburg. That is one of many of the tools that they're looking at trying to employ, and it is being heavily researched in the town right now. A great connection for more information on that would be Matt Hanratty, the deputy town manager responsible for neighborhood services. He would be a really great resource.
Yeah, this question's for Mel. This is just a follow-up to Supervisors Bones' tax question. In your focus groups, did you have any people say that our tax rate is too low and it should be raised?
We didn't have a lot of discussion around taxes.
Okay.
So really no.
So it sounds like it's a wash and everybody thinks our tax rate is right where it should be.
Well, I wouldn't read into silence any sort of conclusions.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
Are questions still your favorite part?
No. All this stuff.
May I just add one more thing? I just want to remind everyone that residential growth does not pay for services required. Unfortunately.
At least in our county.
Yeah.
Any more questions? No. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Well, good job.
Mr. Chair, next presentation we have is we have put together the Montgomery County Annual Report. Jennifer, I believe you're going to share that with the group. There's this goofy guy that introduces it, so I apologize for after the great discussion we've had, you get to watch me for a few minutes now. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, to share with you the 2019 Montgomery County Annual Report. Just to remind you, this highlights a few of the accomplishments between July 2018 through June 2019. And we have created a short video tonight for you to look at that gives a couple of the major highlights that have taken place in that time frame. But in addition to the video, I want to make you aware of an online digital report that we completed that highlights the departments. And so this will be available, or is available, on our website. And I encourage you to take a look at it because it does provide information. You can go through and learn more about the county, and then you can click through and look at the different highlights for our departments. And I want to make you aware of a couple little things here. Some of the departments will have picture slideshows, so you can click through them if you see these little arrows. Some of the departments will have additional videos that we've created throughout the year that are relevant and we think should be highlighted as well. And other pages, you'll notice if you see something, the word more, that means when you click on that, it's going to go to a news release that is most likely on our website or other information that's relevant. So I wanted to make you aware of that. It's an interactive online report, and it's the rest of the story because we've done so much in the last year that we couldn't include that in one video. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that when you get a chance. And without further ado, I am going to share with you our annual report. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Craig Meadows, County Administrator for Montgomery County. Here are some highlights from the county's 2019 fiscal year.
In the spring of 2019, the county partnered with the NRV Regional Commission and the City of Radford to complete a regional broadband study. The study will help identify needs to implement a solution for more and better broadband coverage throughout Montgomery County. The board launched the Valley to Valley Trail Initiative by hosting a regional trail forum where several localities discussed ways to interconnect trail systems throughout Southwest Virginia. Initiated in 2013 by the Blacksburg Partnership, New River Valley Rail 2020 is a broad-based community initiative to bring Amtrak passenger rail service to Virginia's New River Valley. NRV 2020 seeks to gain funding for extending Amtrak's Northeast Regional service from its current terminus in Roanoke to Christiansburg. In keeping with the master plan, Montgomery County Parks and Recreation completed park plans for the Reiner area and Creed Fields in eastern Montgomery. The Montgomery County Sustainability Council worked on initiatives throughout 2018 to gather points for the Virginia Association of Counties Green Government Challenge. As of October 2018, the county earned enough points to qualify as a green government by the Virginia Association of Counties. The county completed a reassessment of real estate properties in Montgomery County in the fall of 2018. Reassessment takes place every 4 years. 11 citizens participated in the 2018 Montgomery Christiansburg Citizens Academy, a free 8-week program. Participants were provided a hands-on experience covering a wide variety of local government functions, ranging from police, fire, and rescue to a tour of the Public Works facility. The Animal Care and Adoption Center achieved a 95.5% live release rate. We'd also like to thank our community for helping the ACAC receive a $25,000 Holiday Wishes grant from Petco. For all of you who took the time to vote for the Animal Care and Adoption Center, thank you. The Montgomery Floyd Regional Library launched a Family Reads program in 2018 with an objective to increase the English language skills of parents and to fully partner in their children's education and English literacy. For the 5th consecutive year, the Center for Digital Government and the National Association of Counties recognized Montgomery as a leading digital county. Montgomery County placed first in Virginia and 4th nationally out of the top 10 counties with populations of less than 150,000. For the 31st consecutive year, the Finance Department has received the Government Finance Officers Association's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. After breaking ground in August 2018, the county celebrated the grand opening of the new burn building training facility in April 2019. Representing over 1,673 years of combined service, the individuals with more than 40 years of service who volunteer for the Christiansburg, Blacksburg, Elliston, Longshot McCoy, Reiner, and Shawsville Fire Departments and rescue squads were recognized by the Board of Supervisors. First Australia, then Finland, and now Christiansburg, Virginia. Google's Wing is the first ever drone delivery system in the United States. In addition to package delivery, the company also plans to use the drones for infrastructure inspection and emergency management. Wing plans to launch in Christiansburg in the fall of 2019. And in the fall of 2018, the 1901 Group received funding through the Virginia Job Investment Program to expand their Enterprise IT Operations Center, bringing an additional 580 new jobs to Montgomery County by 2021.
Thank you for viewing the 2019 Montgomery County Annual Report highlights. To view our complete annual report, please go to www.montva.com/annual report. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Jen, thank you.
Good job.
Well, I tell you what, Jen and Durley and Josh spent a lot of time on that, and I really encourage you to get past the goofy guy video and delve deeper into the report, because there is a ton of information out there.
I like how you've embedded so much additional data into the digital version as well.
It's cool.
That's really nice.
It's really cool. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Now moving to the public address session. No one has signed up, but if anyone would like to step forward, please step forward, state your name, address, and you have 5 minutes. You can talk about anything on your mind. Seeing nobody, we'll move right along. Addendum.
No addendum this evening, Mr. Chair.
Consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda.
Second.
Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bell?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair King?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Very good. We do have 4 items of new business this evening, board members. Our first item under new business is a resolution to declare Montgomery County a drought area. We have had rainfall recently, however, because of the dry conditions for months previously, it's created some real issues for our farmers and agricultural losses. The resolution before you petitions Governor Northam to declare Montgomery County a drought area in order to provide a means for those affected to qualify for some relief assistance.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
If anybody wants.
Is any discussion? I'd like to say just one thing. I appreciate the farmers and all that reached out to me, and like I told them, if they don't reach out to us, we don't know what they need. But I do public want to tell them how much I appreciate them reaching out to me. Madam Secretary, you call roll, please.
Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Mr. Tuck.
Aye.
Mr. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Motts.
Aye.
Ms. Biggs.
Aye.
Chair King.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Board members, the next item under new business this evening is a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the ordinance amending Chapter 9.1 solid waste related to solid waste flow control. We actually had a public hearing on this matter earlier in the year, but because some time has passed and some information has come forward, it's best that we ask that another public hearing be scheduled for that discussion. This resolution calls for that public hearing to be held on Monday, January 13th, 2020.
And I would make a motion on that to have that public hearing.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
My only regret is I won't be able to vote in favor of it. Obviously, I won't be on the board at that point in time. But I do think that this is an important step to make sure to control costs. What we've seen, at least, and I've done a fair amount of research on this issue because I thought it was going to be coming up during my term, is the fact that these larger companies with their dump sites are trying to drive up the prices for basically our citizens. And just like sewer and water is a public utility, having our dump site and being able to have it affordable to our citizens, and especially when you look at the last time we had a tipping fee increase, it's amazing the affordability. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep that low here in Montgomery County for our citizens.
Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Mr. Tuck.
Aye.
Mr. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Motts.
Aye.
Ms. Biggs.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Chair King.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Our third item of new business this evening is to proclaim November 30th, 2019, which I believe is the Saturday after the Thanksgiving holiday, a Small Business Saturday, and you have a resolution to that extent in your packet.
So moved.
Second. Third.
Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Mr. Tuck.
Aye.
Mr. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Motts.
Aye.
Ms. Biggs.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Chair King.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Last item of new business this evening is we have a resolution of appreciation on the agenda for Christopher A. Tuck. Supervisor Tuck elected not to run for another term in office. This resolution expresses the board's appreciation to Supervisor Tuck for serving the citizens in District B. Some may ask, why are you doing this when he's got a couple of meetings left? Well, we'd like to get them framed and make them all pretty to present to the outgoing board members, so that's why this is on the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I got a lot to say. But
Is this a time for the roast, or is that later?
We'll schedule ample time in the December meeting for that.
long meeting in December. Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Mr. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Motts.
Aye.
Ms. Biggs.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Mr. Tuck.
Abstain.
Chair King.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 abstain.
Mr. Chair, that's it for business.
Moving to the exciting part now. County Attorney's Report.
I will also abstain.
County Administrator.
just one item this evening, and I think most folks have already noticed that. You had before you the legislative priorities for 2020. I want to thank, again, Jennifer and her staff. I believe Durley had a hand in the design of this. We wanted to come up with something that would be memorable as opposed to just handing the state officials a sheet of paper, and we talked about making it a different color, and then this idea came along, and I certainly commend Durley and the staff for putting that together. But thanks for the work on that, and that is all I have this evening.
I'd just like to say this is perfect.
It's awesome.
When I came out here and I saw this and opened it up, I thought, okay, when you guys are down there lobbying on behalf of Montgomery County, they're going to see it, and then it's unique. It's different than anything else that I've seen when I've been down there, and it goes to the bullet points. It's really a great idea, and I really do appreciate the staff coming up with that.
And it's freestanding. They keep it right in front of them.
That's right.
Supervisor Steve.
I just have one item, and that's I want to bring up the. It's actually in the fields down there across from the Shawsville Middle School. I've had a request that we take a look at the tennis courts, which are in such state that they can't be used for tennis. There's cracks through the asphalt, grass growing up through it. I took the opportunity to get a quote from just one contractor, and he advised me that in order to bring it back up to where you could play tennis on it, it would be quite expensive, somewhere in the range of $120,000 plus. But I asked him, what if we did something to repurpose the tennis courts? Because the way I look at it, it's an investment the county made. If we were ever to build one like it, it would cost us probably well over $250,000. I guess what I'm asking is if, and I know I've talked to some of you, but not at all, that if we maybe take some small measures to try to salvage it, and maybe next year look at converting it over to maybe 2 basketball courts. That's something that the youth in the area could use, or even the adults for that matter. There's always some middle-aged guy thinks he's still got his moves, and he'll probably want to go out there and try them. But just to get it so that it doesn't fall apart anymore during the winter time, we're looking at probably about $2,000 to clean out the cracks and to seal them so it doesn't get any worse. And the other request, before I move on to the other request, I looked in the contract, Marty, for that, and it doesn't specifically list in the contract any requirement of maintenance by the Mountain Valley Charitable for the tennis courts. Lists everything else down there, but it doesn't list the tennis courts, and I couldn't figure out why. So I don't know if that would be another reason to lay on there that we should try to save them. But I kind of look at it as a capital improvement that they can't afford. But the other request that they had was that when the school building, because Shawsville Middle was split by Old Town Road, so when they tore down the section there next to the fields, or on the same side as the fields, they basically tore out and opened up access to the football field, so that when there are events, there's no way to control the crowd. So that has proven to be somewhat of a problem. They had put up a temporary snow fence, but it's all fallen apart. And again, fencing is a little bit more expensive, and I went ahead and contacted a contractor the county has used quite a bit, and got an estimate of about $9,200. But I think it's a little bit over 500 feet of fencing that would need to be put up. But I think that's also something that we should consider, because the field belongs to the county, and whether Mountain Valley Charitable keeps it for an extended period of time, or if it reverts back to us, we would want those two items taken care of. So I want to throw that out to everybody.
I personally like the idea of converting it over to a basketball court. I think that that could be something that could be fairly inexpensively done. I know they're doing the concert series, I've had, and down there, but also if it does revert back to us, we would be able to utilize the fencing, be able to do that. So that I'd like to see the numbers, but those are both things I would be interested in.
Yeah, and in addition to the concerts, they also have sports teams that play on the field too. Yeah. So by putting up the fence, that would control that a little bit better too.
So Steve, are you asking for staff to find out a cost, or?
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That would be good.
If there's consensus, we'll be glad to move that forward.
I would be glad to give you what I have so far. So.
Thank you.
And to put together a resolution to actually make that happen.
I think we first need to look at the contract, don't we, Marty?
I'm sorry?
I think first we need to look at the contract, what we signed with.
With Mountain Valley?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if they took over the tennis courts or not. I mean, they didn't, I'm not sure they took everything over there, so.
I don't think they did.
We can look in file.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the point that it's a capital investment that we've already made, that we should figure out how we can make sure we're maintaining it so it's at least usable by the community.
Is that all you got?
That's all I have.
Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, well, before I get to my VACO commercial, I want to thank everyone that was involved with the Reiner Fire Department celebration and ribbon cutting. That facility is just A+. I mean, Todd, that community deserved that facility, and it really is something. So thank everyone that was involved in that. And then as to my VACO commercial, I always have to do my VACO commercial. A lot of us were able to go to the annual conference last weekend, along with Supervisor-elect Sherry Blevins, and they had over 930 participants, I believe. We had 94 of the 95 counties in Virginia represented. Goochland County still is not a member. And it was a very well organized conference as usual, but we have some exciting news to report. We have 13 regions currently in VACO in our organization, and we are Region 10. And we elected 2 new VACO board members. One of them, our own supervisor, April DeMotts, along with Jerry Booth from Floyd County. Now, the unusual thing about this is our county and Floyd County we're in this sort of weird situation where the rest of the counties are Southside Virginia, and I get to stay on the board as past president. So we have 3 members right here in our own region that are going to be sitting on that board. So I'm really excited about that, and congratulations to April.
Thank you.
And for those that don't understand about VACO, one of the things that's really important to our organization is member involvement and engagement. And so it is my duty to remind you to turn in your blue sheet by December 31st if you want to serve on any of the committees. We currently have 7 steering committees: Economic Development and Planning, Education, Environment and Agriculture, Finance, General Government, Health and Human Services, and Transportation. These committees meet during the year, and they form our legislative priorities that we present through VACO at the General Assembly in February. So if you want to be involved in any of those, or you're interested in any of those would be the steering committees. We also have 4 operational committees: Budget and Finance, Conference Planning, Nominating, and Communications Committee. So please become involved and engaged, because the networking and the information and the knowledge that you obtain is really, you can't get anywhere else. So going on with VACO, we I guess it was Supervisor-elect Sherry Blevins and Chair King and I attended the conflict of interest training, and I want to say hands down, it's so much better than sitting there on your iPad and listening to, and I don't know who the individual is that reads it, but it's very monotone. We actually had a presentation in person, and then we were awarded our certificates to file with our clerk, Vicki. So we got that done. I was able to actually be a moderator for something that you all know that I'm really passionate about, securing the work environment, not only in our schools, but in our government buildings. I think I've brought it up a number of times. And so we had Secretary Brian Moran, who's Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security of Virginia, and Donna Michaelis, and they were the presenters. But Donna Michaelis I've never been so impressed with someone giving a presentation, and I have a copy of it if you all want. It was more focused on school safety, but it was really interesting to note that Virginia is a leader in school safety right now, and others are coming to Virginia to learn about what Virginia is doing in their schools for school safety. So that was interesting to find out. As far as our new officers go, Stephen Bowen is from Roanoke County. He is our new president. Jeff McKay is our president-elect from Fairfax County. And Meg Bunkme is from Stafford County. She's the first vice president. And then we have Jason Bellows from Lancaster County as our second vice president. And Donald Hart is our secretary treasurer from Accomack. Jason is from Lancaster. So you can see right now the officers are in the eastern part of the state. And our past president, Tim Reeves, was from Wytheville. So right now we don't really have, everyone's sort of from the eastern part of the state. But the good thing about VACO is everyone works together and supports each other across the state. And it's a really good way to understand what other localities are facing. And I want to commend Chris for sending Sherry, because I think from what I could tell, Sherry was really enjoying getting to know people and networking. So I think that was a really good decision that we made there. And thanks for that happening, Chris. And I think that's all. Is that a good enough commercial for VACO?
Yeah.
Okay.
Done?
First, I want to make it clear I'm not interested in raising any real estate taxes. Okay? That's all. Not interested in that.
So you don't want people emailing you? Is that what you're saying?
I just wanted to see if they had any data. So, first I want to congratulate my supervisor to my left for winning re-election. Congratulations. Thank you. And to Miss Supervisor DeMotts for being nominated and elected to be on the VACO board. That's wonderful. I wanted to speak to Supervisor Fidzikowski's comments about the tennis courts and maintenance. I assumed that the county does a regular inventory and maintenance schedule for our assets.
That's a former school property.
Yeah.
It's a former school property, but it's ours now.
That's something we've got to look into. The county accepted that because the schools indicated they no longer used it, and then we entered into an agreement with Mountain Valley Charitable Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to look into that to make sure who has the responsibility.
So I'm wondering if there's any other assets out there that actually are ours that maybe we're not clear.
I don't think so.
That's the only one I know of.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Congratulations, April,
Thank you.
for the VACO thing. And I want to say I appreciate everybody that came out to vote for all the candidates. I think that's something every American should do. I met a lot of people that say they didn't vote and didn't have any interest in voting, so that's pretty sad. I also want to thank everybody that worked vigorously on my campaign and all the campaigns in the county. And this is wonderful. That's a whole lot better than what we were doing. Even I noticed that right off. So thank you, whoever took care of that. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Tuck.
Well, first, I want to point out that what we did out in Roanoke with the fire department. We as a board were able to do that unanimously, but we were also able to do it on a cash basis. That goes to our staff and being able to work that out. It also came out under budget, and that is going to be it is a top-rate facility for our volunteers. And this year I've got with Neil a little bit, and the numbers are looking like we're going to respond to over 13,000 calls with our volunteers between fire and rescue this year. So it's a wonderful thing. It also is an amazing thing that the Teal family did to allow us to be able to buy that property. And frankly, what we were going to pay for about 1/5 of the amount of real estate that we were able to buy. And so that was a commitment by their family to our community. So that part of my report. And then this past weekend, there was a really important football game for our community, but really something that came out on a national scale, and an event that is really part of the fabric of who we are. And of course, I'm speaking of the Battle of the Bergs, in which the Christiansburg Blue Demons were victorious on the gridiron and were able to beat the Blacksburg Bruins. And so many of you may not know, but Christiansburg High School was awarded this national award. And I know that some of my supervisors from Blacksburg may not get the opportunity to see this, so I brought it with me tonight so you could get an up-close look at this. And I would just like to congratulate the Blue Demons on their 21-14 victory on the gridiron. And with that, that's the end of my report. I think I may set that break here.
I'm just curious how Supervisor Tuck got a hold of that.
I have my ways.
Okay.
Vice Chair Mons.
Rub it in, Chris.
Oh, by the way, you may notice
Oh, gosh.
I'm wearing my Blue Demon tie and suit to match this evening.
Enjoy it this year.
Yeah, I think it's the first time in 5 years or 6 years that the battle has been.
We've got a national trophy.
It's a beautiful trophy. And congratulations to Christiansburg.
Yes.
And I'm serious. I don't know. How long has it been since they won a state championship?
It's been a little bit. We played one, but
Good one, Daryl.
that's okay. We won the game that matters.
Congratulations.
This year.
Just very quickly, I am extremely honored to have been elected to serve on the VACO Board of Directors, and I would not have been able to do it or even have been interested in doing it if it wasn't for Supervisor Biggs' commercials for VACO, and also her incredible support of the organization and her support of me. So I want to thank you sincerely for nominating me to serve in that role. I really, really appreciate it. I'm very excited to serve on the Virginia Association of Counties Board because I think it will both benefit me, and then I might be able to advocate for issues in Montgomery County in ways that that I haven't been able to before. Now, Mary has been an amazing advocate for Montgomery County through the statewide organization, so I have huge shoes to fill and an incredible role model to look up to as she continues to serve on that board as well. But it is quite an honor and a privilege to be able to serve in that capacity. In the same vein, at the VACO conference, one of my favorite sessions that I attended was a session on promoting athletics and recreation as economic development. And so I look forward to being able to meet with our Parks and Recreation Director on some of the opportunities that I learned about from both wealthier counties and less wealthy counties on how they're taking advantage of their region's assets in ways that promote parks and recreation. So, for example, in Dinwiddie County, they have a skydiving facility, and then in Tazewell County, I'm sure many of you have heard of the Back of the Dragon, That's a VDOT maintained road that they have just slap some marketing around, and it attracts over 60,000 visitors a year into their communities, and they have generated economic growth that they can trace to the promotion of that VDOT maintained road. They have breweries that are opening, restaurants that are opening, and other types of opportunities are coming into their community. So I really learned a lot from those sessions in more expensive ways of promoting Parks and Rec, and also in ways that you can change your lens at how you're looking at your community, and really market some of your existing assets. And then finally, just an idea to maybe consider for a extended work session on the board or a discussion down the road. In talking with many other attendees at the VACO conference, I found out an interesting fact, and I wish I could remember what county it came from, but it was a county supervisor that was telling me that every member of their board, and this is actually really appropriate in light of your comments, Supervisor Fidzikowski, every member of their board has a small discretionary amount of money that they can actually look at and use on projects in their district. And so I think the number that they gave, it was either 5,000 or 10,000 that they have. Is just a small supervisor's discretionary fund. Now, of course, it would have to be approved through all the proper channels, but it would also eliminate, if you're looking at a $2,000 project, it would eliminate a lot of process to get to possibly completing that project. So it might be something to consider, establishing some form of small discretionary fund for district projects at the supervisors.
I think that's one of the south side counties, isn't it?
I am not sure. I was kind of racking my brain on the way over, thinking, what county is it that did this? Because we talked to so many different people throughout the whole thing. So, and I have a hard time remembering what county everybody's from anyway. So I just thought it was an interesting concept, and one that I had never heard of before, that might be something for Montgomery County to consider. And that's all that I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mine's short and sweet. I just wanted to tell the board up here how much I really enjoyed working with y'all so far this year. I hope you can return the favor sometime. But as far as the VACO meeting, we really learn a lot down there. You can go to any classes and you can learn. You talk to other supervisors, county administrators, and they'll show you the things that they do that we never even realized we could do. And it just takes time to implement some things. I know we go to Craig and say, "What about this, Craig? What about this?" He said, "Give me time."
Working on it.
We're working on it. But I do want to tell each board member that I appreciate everything you do. I know this has turned into almost a full-time job. But I appreciate everybody's effort to do the best they can for the citizens of Montgomery County. And it's one thing as chair I'm proud of, and I tell people, we have some differences, but we work together for the citizens of Montgomery County. And I want to thank you personally for that. That's all.
April, you want?